Hello and welcome to day 2 of the challenge. How did we all go yesterday? I know for me going through that process, I felt a real sense of sadness and also a sense of relief that that doesn't have to be part of my story anymore, that I can change how that process went for me in terms of how I feel about things. It also gave me a bit of an understanding of where I want to take my girls through this process and how I want it to be different for them as it was for me. But gave me particular insights of what things to mention and what things were appropriate and not appropriate. Because I think one thing is that we often think they're too young, but if that's something that we actually wanted for ourselves, then I think it's perfectly acceptable to also offer that to our children. So day 2, this is all about easing into the conversation. And again, this is a little trip down memory lane. But first, I want you to think about how we can reframe the talk of periods from initially and instantly going into talking about sex and about conception and about babies, to then changing into the process that this is a perfectly normal process for a woman, and actually, in fact, is a more of a look at our overall health than it is just about conception. We would use our period as a marker for health much more than we would in order to try to conceive. So that's one way to look at reframing periods and reframing the discussion we have with our girls around periods, that it's normal and that it's healthy, and that it doesn't always have to be about sex and conception. So a little trip down memory lane again. I want you to bring out your old photo albums. So we're going to talk about stories here. So we're going to be looking at photos of you around the same age as your daughter is now, and also the age that you started your period. So get the albums out, have a laugh at how you looked, have a laugh at all the clothes, and tell us stories. Now, this doesn't have to have anything to do with periods to start with. It can just be stories of you growing up, stories of your life, stories of your family, where you lived, what you were doing in those photos. And then you can introduce things like, oh, this is when I first started to notice I was growing breasts, or this, I went through a massive growth spurt this year, or this is when I started liking this boy. So talking about all the other changes of puberty, and then also mentioning, oh, this is when around the time I got my first period, just normalizing it, not making it out to be a big deal. So we're just trying to normalize the conversation. She might start asking questions, which is great. You can then go further into the discussion. But even if she doesn't, if you've introduced the topic in a normal conversation, then there's more scope for you to continue to do that. So have fun with this. I definitely have fun with my children looking through my photo albums, and sadly there's a lot of photos that have been removed and I don't have as many, but there's still enough to tell stories and to show them that going through the changes of puberty is completely normal. We understand what that process is like, and we are now changed, and we don't have the same bodies that we did back then, but it's all a beautiful process. So let me know how you go with this exercise. Excited to hear, and have fun.